Our goal is to create an educational video game which would teach a STEM topic to students in school. Since all four of us are computer science intended students, we wanted to create a game which would introduce students to computer science. Although we could have chosen any age group, we decided to cater to high school students. We aim to create a game which would be fun for high school students no matter their educational or social background. Our research guided our process for choosing a project. We believe it is imperative to introduce younger students to the academic options available to them in college. Research shows that its students will only pursue fields in college which they have already been exposed to before beginning college. It is essential then that students are exposed to computer science as early as possible to show them another possibility for their career. In addition, the computer science field is growing extremely fast. More young students need to be exposed to computer science in order to fulfill the demand of the field.
Initially, we considered making a game centered on the physics of basketball by having the player simply shoot toward a hoop. We also talked about designing a game in which the player controls a spaceship in which we would teach the player about the physics involved in moving the ship. However, we realized that most groups would create a game which was loosely related to physics and motion, and we wanted to create something a little more original. We chose to create a game which would allow the player to loosely simulate the life of a college student. In this game, the student would have to manage the categories shown here. The player is presented with a series of choices, such as the choice seen above. Depending on the choice that the player chooses, the bars would be affected. If either the grades bar or well-being bar hit 0, the student drops out and loses. Every time our player chose to study instead of have fun, not only did their grades improve, they learned simple facts about computer science and the computer science department at NC State. At the end of the semester, if the player did not drop out, they take a final exam where they are quizzed on the facts they have learned about computer science.
Early on in our development stage, we encountered an issue with the trial version of GameMaker. The free trial version only allowed for 15 objects in the game, where an object is any item in our program with code. Thankfully, one of our team members' friends, named Jack Foster, had the full version of the software and allowed us to use it. Unfortunately, the full version only allowed 2 of our team members to be logged in at one time, which made it difficult to collaborate. However, because we did not pay for the full version, we fell in line with the $40 budget constraint. So the lesson learned, there is always a loophole. Unlike many of our fellow engineers, we did not have to build physical prototypes to test, but instead our testing process consisted of designing small aspects of the game individually and then putting them together. We began by messing around with the sprites and figuring out how to build a bar which could graphically display a value from 0 to 100 and went from there. After some work, we had finished designing our bars, although we had yet to label them or manipulate them, and we had one small blue button which did absolutely nothing.
What kind of a choice is this? Option B? Choice C? This is a terrible game. What is this red thing that's just showing up right now? There's another blue button over here.
Slowly and steadily, we added little aspects of the game. A few weeks later, we had written all the events and choices for the player and inserted them into our game, and we had determined how the choices would affect the health bars. Finally, we finished by attempting to make the game aesthetically pleasing by adding some pictures of NC State into the background.
This is much better than the last one. Next week, a highly anticipated video game is coming out this weekend, but you and your end of semester project is due on Monday. What will you do? Play the game all weekend? Of course, this game's awesome. Next week, apparently my grades are going down quite a lot. You wake up late for class and don't have time to get ready for your 8:30 class, shower and eat before class, and show up late. Grades going down again. It's so accurate. I love this. Your significant other wants to go see a movie tonight. Do you take them out or try for a less expensive option on campus? Definitely go out to the movies. I'm losing money now, too. At least the relationship's working out.
The game's logic was completed rather early, so the last few days before Fed was about making the remaining sprites. Every single event, choice, and button needed a sprite. GameMaker has its own software to design sprites, but it's not very good and doesn't give the freedom many tools to work with. Luckily, 2 members of our group have Photoshop and we were able to make a plethora of sprites to use in the game. During Fed, lots of students came by our table to play our game. Everyone loved the game except for the judges. We played 5th out of the 13 teams. We set up our station with our poster, which included a picture of gameplay and explained the logic of the game. We wish we could figure out how to tackle problems in a more efficient manner. We realized that our processes wasn't very efficient when it came time to make all of the game sprites. So if we could start over, our first priority would be finding a way to reduce the load of sprites.
My advice would be to definitely start working on stuff early, because by the time Fed Day comes around, finals are right there, and you just really don't want to be worrying about Fed stuff.
My advice would be to manage your time well. We grinded a large part of this project out in the last week, which was pretty miserable, so try and space out your project.
Make sure you've prepared enough to start the project. For example, find someone with a full version GameMaker license.
Think outside the box when choosing your game idea. Be unique and try something that you're interested in. And if the judges hate it, oh well.
What am I supposed to do with this? I don't understand.